Welcome back to the Captain's Quadrant. I'm Joe Dove, joined by my co-host Jason Roy Gaston, and boy, do we have a treat for you. We are back in the section 31 as we have questions, but we are with a very special guest. You may remember him from all of your favorite childhood memories and shows and movies. We're talking the Muppets, Star Wars, Dark Crystal, and one of my personal favorites, Labyrinth. We are very honored and excited to have David Barclay with us. Thank you so much for joining us in section 31.
I'm very happy to be here. Yes, and I noticed the picture before I had my moustache. No, it's gone now.
So. Yeah, I noticed that. Maybe I can get some Photoshop.
No, that's all right.
I mean, to give them the Justice League treatment, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Typically, I had moustache from early 20s, and just recently it got rid of it. So
wow.
Gosh, your upper lip must be so cold.
It's not used to it. Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons when I was back as a kid is that I decided I wanted to look different to my dad, and my dad couldn't grow a moustache. He tried, wow. It just wouldn't come through properly. So I don't know why. So I thought, well, I'm going to do that. So that was part of it, so that I would be different to my dad. So, but I really look like him these days. But I'm fine with that. So.
Hey, honor the legacy, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to let Jason hop right into it. We're going to get into some questions about yourself, your career, and oh boy, we are super excited to get into it because growing up, when we think about all of our favorite shows, we always remember the puppets in them. As we grew older, we would just see them as characters, but now we know that there's more magic that goes into it, and you're the man behind that magic. So, Jason, if you please.
Absolutely. First of all, I have to tell you, Jabba the Hutt traumatized me whenever I was 6 years old and watched Return of the Jedi in theaters. The only Star Wars movie of the original trilogy that I managed to see in theaters. I remember hiding behind my seat because Jabba the Hutt scared me so badly. At the age of 6, I was just full tilt, trembling. He scared me more than the Rancor did, and I don't understand why, because I look at him now and I'm just like, that's just like my uncle. He looks just like my uncle. But what I would like to know, speaking of early memories and things, I want to know what initially drew you to the art of puppetry, and how did you decide it was the right path for you?
Interesting. Well, I have a really good excuse. My parents are puppeteers. So originally they were actors. Yeah, they started off as actors. They met at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, RADA, in London in the mid-50s, and they wanted to be actors. My dad had dreams of being someone like Laurence Olivier, famous actor of the day. But when I came along, they got married, and I came along a few years later, and they decided they wanted to do something together. They were always cast separately when they were acting, and they wanted to work together. So my father had made puppets when he was a teenager, and my mum had also done some puppet work in between acting jobs. So they said, well, puppets could be a good way that we could work together. So they decided to do that. And the first show was incredibly well received, to the point that they then became professional puppeteers for the rest of their lives. So as a kid, they are making and designing puppets, writing plays, rehearsing them. They made their own puppet theatre. They did every job between them for the entire running of the company, including all the accounts and everything, booking everything. So I grew up with this creative environment where you do everything yourselves, and that if you want something done, you do it yourself, and if it has to be done by tomorrow, then you've got to do it today, sort of thing. So it was an amazing creative childhood that I absolutely adored. But when I got into I also discovered my parents' makeup boxes from when they were actors, and I quite like that. I quite like making myself look older. I always wanted to be older when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
So it's like I wanted to be taken seriously, so I wanted to be older. That's why I actually grew the beard and moustache when I was 16. But aside from that, I got to the point where I'd been traveling with them doing shows from the time I was 4, and when I became tall enough, I became part of their show when I could actually reach to do the puppeteering. So for many years, I did hundreds of performances with them, and I was thinking, well, this is probably my path. But I discovered special effects makeup effects and science fiction, a la Star Trek. I love Star Trek. Loved Planet of the Apes. So I decided I was going to make a Planet of the Apes set of makeup, costumes, and sets and props and everything. And I filmed my own home movies on 8mm Cinefilm. This is before video was even available. It wasn't released yet to the general public. So you'd have to send the film to get processed, then you'd watch it back on a projector with flickery lights. And I loved all of that. I loved the filmmaking process. So I did some copies of different classic, I did the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I did the Frankenstein, the Boris Karloff Frankenstein makeup. I did an really old age makeup that was Dick Smith's famous makeup. So I was really interested in the special effects makeup and special effects and all the joys that science fiction would bring. So I thought, well, how can I combine that with puppetry? I'm like, I can't really. So I wasn't sure. There wasn't a job that did that. So it's like, well, how can I possibly find the job that I want to do, which didn't exist? And went to see Star Wars. And when I was about 17, with a friend of mine, his dad somehow got us opening weekend tickets, which was impossible to get hold of. So I don't know who he had to kill to get those. So we saw the film, and at the end of the film, we said, we've got to be in the industry, have to work in the film industry, And I said, I wish I could work on something like that. And then, as luck would have it, 2 years later, I did get to work on The Empire Strikes Back.
That is amazing. What a way to think of it into the universe and then make it happen. That is projection I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of, as much as I wanted it to happen, it's a small miracle that it did, in my opinion. So, but yeah, I got that opportunity.
That's great. And could you describe your process for bringing a puppet to life, like just the character? Because each one is its own entity and its own vision, and that's presented by you.
Yes.
Can you go from concept to performance?
Yes, interestingly enough, it's something that was really important to me, and I think probably because my parents being actors, I was never officially trained. Although I did a lot of amateur dramatics at school and that sort of thing, and obviously I performed with my parents and other puppet companies, friends of my parents when I was a kid. So I had a lot of hands-on experience. But for me, it's always about trying to identify the character. And then doing everything you can. It's like almost kind of project your inner being through your arms, through the character onto screen, trying to get that energy into the character, that life energy. And maybe it was some of that life energy that we got into Jabba that scared you as a 6-year-old, possibly. But that's part of it. Rather than just physically moving it around, it's all about the intention of the character and the mindset. So a lot of the initial stuff comes from the concept as though you were just going to be an actor and doing that. But then you need to make sure that the tool that you're using, the puppet, the animatronic, can deliver that performance. So over the years, that's been what's really important to me. I've been one of the few puppet designers, puppet builders, and then chief puppeteers in the industry, because generally it's usually one of those roles. You usually get a puppeteer, and then you get the puppet designers and puppet makers, and so I'm one of the few people that was, again, probably because of my childhood, seeing my parents do it all themselves. Yeah. I wanted to do all of that as and felt that was important. And for me, identifying the character traits, right now, what mechanisms, what design of the puppet do we have to go through to be able to achieve that character? And so, for instance, like Mr. Tinkles from the Cats and Dogs films, like, right, what are we going to do? It's like work out the neck mechanism, work out the facial mechanism. Do we have the range to be able to bring this character to life? And it all comes from a point of, what is this character? I mean, obviously, it has to, when it's a real animal that we're matching, it's got to stay within those boundaries. But again, because you can't do every single expression that a real animal or a real person could create. So you have to make choices of what are the the archetypal expressions that you need for that character. So I mean, obviously Mr. Tinkles, he wouldn't be sad and crying all the time, so you wouldn't need to worry about building all that. So
Yeah.
Sorry, I just laughed because Mr. Tinkles was, in my opinion, the best part of Cats and Dogs. I didn't know you were behind that one, so thank you for Mr. Tinkles as well.
Ah, well, thank you. Yes, in fact, the producer also agreed. Yes.
So obviously your parents were a huge influence on you, but were there any other particular puppeteers who maybe influenced your style as you were growing up and getting into the industry?
Yes, I think it would be true to say that I met some puppeteers when I was a kid, when we were doing it, it was a bit like a convention. It was a puppet what I can't remember what it was called now, like exhibition. And they were various different of the day, the classic British puppeteers. Percy Press was a Punch and Judy guy who was amazing. Again, he was able to through those puppets connect with the audience. You got this energy coming through the puppets. And there was also a marionette designer, builder and performer, Waldo Lanchester, and so he was a British guy from the 50s, and he did the same thing. Somehow he was able to emit the emotion through the puppet, and that was something that my parents very much did that. They very much did that. You could definitely tell that the characters were being brought to life with the emotions of the personalities, and that always connected to the audience. So that to me was a really important part of it. But then the real sort of icing on the cake was Frank Oz, Jim Henson, because they, in my opinion, were the best in the world, certainly in their style. I also got to meet a German marionette designer and builder who's reckoned to be one of the best ever, a guy called Albrecht Rosa. And so I got to meet him through Jim Henson. Jim sort of arranged a meeting for us, and that was an amazing experience too. So I got to meet some of the really the best performers and builders of the day, and of course none better than Frank Oz and Jim Henson.
It's so interesting that you say that, because you're saying so many names that I'm unfamiliar with, and I'm realizing that puppeteers are the invisible performers that bring to life some of our most cherished characters, and we never really know who they are. The fact that you said that you were behind Mr. Tinkles, and I'm like, I had no idea I'm talking to the man behind Mr. Tinkles. That's incredible. I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah,
I didn't interrupt you. I just had a really good thought.
No, go on.
No, I mean that's the thing. I mean, it's for me, it's if you can. I mean, I performed Sprocket the dog for the European International Co-Productions of Fraggle Rock, and again, I just loved bringing him to life. He didn't speak. He had no actual words. He would bark and make some noises. But for me, he was perfect because I had to use pure puppetry to bring him to life. And again, it's that, and that helped, I think, hone my skills to connect the character through the technique of puppeteering rather than through the voice. I think some puppeteers are brilliant voice performers, and they focus on voices, and the puppet just kind of moves along, just kind of does what it's supposed to do. But for somebody like Sprocket, there is no dialogue, so it all has to come from the physicality of the puppet and the way. And if he's going to think about something, you need to see him really think about it. So it becomes like pantomime and mime, using the puppet to communicate that emotion without words. So that was just another amazing opportunity that I got through Jim Henson to be able to experiment and hone my skills in the areas that I was really interested in.
That's amazing.
They didn't name the dog on the American version of Fraggle Rock after you, did they?
No. There was a character called Barclay in Sesame Street. That wasn't me. Okay. That was before I got involved. Yeah. So.
Oh. I guess I got the two dogs mixed up in my head. Okay, never mind. Joe, continue.
Yeah. No. Yeah, Doc and Sprocket it was called originally, and
Okay.
Steve Whitmire originated the performance of Sprocket. But I was working for Jim Henson, and I saw the initial rough cut of the very first episode of Fraggle Rock, 30-minute work week. And that's when I first saw Sprocket. And I said to producer Duncan Conworthy, I love that. I love the fact that he doesn't speak and all of the things I just said. And he mentioned that to Jim, because unbeknownst to me, they were planning the international co-productions, which were, they would refilm Doc and Sprocket in every country that signed up. So they had an actor from that country with the puppet, and then they would dub the Fraggles, because they just open and close mouths.
Right.
They would dub those into the language. So in France, we had a wonderful, well-known actor called Michel Robin, and he was a chef, and Sprocket was called Croquette. And it was really big and over the top, lots of flour flying everywhere, really cartoony, even more so than the original performance from Steve. And so yeah, each of the different countries had a different Sprocket and a different style of Sprocket, and I got to perform all of those European co-productions.
Oh wow, what a legacy. That's amazing.
Yes, I got to bark in many languages.
They're rough. Oh wow. So you mentioned that you work with so many of these prestigious directors and various producers and amazing other puppeteers. How do you approach working with so many different people? Was there anybody that kind of made you nervous that you knew, like the for instance, the German gentleman that you had mentioned? Did that give you kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm working with, you know?
Yes, well, I think nearly always everyone is really down to earth. It's generally probably more of me being feared and scared of other people rather than actually the reality of who they are. Albrecht Rosa did actually have a reputation of being someone who didn't suffer fools gladly. So if people came in, he would be very curt with them and very, but he was delightful. I had developed a unique approach. I think it pretty much was a unique approach for my marionette of Sir Didymus on Labyrinth, and so Jim Henson had just created a documentary about Albrecht Rosa, and said, well, yeah, one of my guys is building a marionette. Would you take a look at it? So, and Albrecht said, sure. So, but he was very supportive, and he gave me great advice. He was, and people say, oh, he never gives advice, you know.
Oh, wow.
I was very lucky, I think, perhaps because he saw that I was truly trying to push the envelope in marionettes for films. Because, I mean, we discussed that the difference between live puppetry and films are very different. And so you have to approach them differently. And he had done a certain amount of TV and film work. So yeah, we had a really good discussion, and he was very supportive and really good. I mean, I think I was initially really nervous to meet Mark Hamill the very first time I met him.
Wow.
Because he was a huge, massive Star Wars superstar.
Yeah.
It's like, but I met him and his wife, and they are both the nicest human beings you could ever imagine, and still are to this day.
Yeah.
And so that really changed my sort of opinion of meeting megastars. It's like, no, they're just people. I got to meet Sir Alec Guinness.
Oh yeah, that's true.
The fanboy in me so desperately wanted to ask for an autograph, but I was there in a professional capacity as a puppeteer working with Yoda, and I knew it was completely inappropriate, so I didn't. But I just remember feeling so delighted that I spent a day with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Did Frank ever like kind of steer you in a different direction for any of the puppeteer work? Working with him?
I don't think so.
Then
no, I mean,
I suppose.
I initially got to work for Frank as a kind of an accident. I got myself a job as a trainee in Stuart Freeborn's makeup department on Empire. That's my initial job. And suddenly one of the puppeteers that Frank was using became ill, I believe, and had to leave the set. So they needed someone to fill in instantly. And so Stuart Freeborn knew I was second generation puppeteer. So he said, well, David's a puppeteer. He can go and fill in for the afternoon. So I was sent immediately to set, given the control, which I knew how it works to help build it. And Frank told me what to do. Oh, it was Frank Oz. Okay. So, and Frank was just very busy working with Yoda. So it wasn't like massive discussion, do this, and we're filming. So it was like no chance to get nervous or anything. I didn't have to audition.
Didn't have the time.
I'm finally doing the eyes with Yoda, and I'm thinking to myself at the end of it, wow, I've actually made it. I've done something on film, on Star Wars. My God. So my dreams come true. And it's like, not only did I want to work on it, but now something I've done is actually going to be on the film. So, but the following morning, Frank said he went to Rush's and he was very happy with what I did. And he wanted me to stay on performing the eyes alongside Wendy Froud. So we switched the eyes out. So, I just, again, a bit like all the other stuff, I just really focused on the character, because Frank was very good at describing how Yoda should move, because he acted it out initially as himself. And so he would go through and he would move the right direction, and then he would do a head turn, and he would say when the eyes had to move and when there was a blink and all of this stuff. But my job with the eyes was where I felt was to try and keep the character organic and alive. So it wasn't just like it's blink, 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 and then it's just looking around. So I think I was like squinting.
Yeah.
And sometimes I squinted really. There was one particular shot where I could see a light reflecting on the eye from somewhere. And it to me, it looked like, well, this makes the eyes not look real. So I squint really way down, and it's like, maybe that's a little too much. No one seemed to mind about it. So anyway, I was using the eyelids to try and give the impression that he was thinking, the same sort of thing I would do with all the puppets. So, and I just naturally did that. I mean, I don't think we really talked about it. So, and everyone seemed to like it. And that particular mechanism, the two eyelids were not mechanically connected. They were separately controlled by each one with a cable. So depending on how you controlled the eyes, they would slightly move independently of each other. And I actually thought that was really good, because it made it look organic and it made it look not mechanical. And more the newer versions of Yoda, they're beautifully engineered, but they blink exactly together as though it's a clockwork mechanism. And I think, oddly enough, the simple, straightforward mechanism that had been built for Yoda gives it a little bit more organic life to it. So
yeah, I agree. I really appreciate that story, because I always thought about that, because when he was lifting the X-wing out of the water, I remember that he started out with a squint. Now that you've explained it, it's like, oh, now that makes a lot more sense. That's such an incredible story.
Yeah, because I mean, he has eyebrows up and down, but you don't get those very subtle adjustments. And so it's just like, and Frank was happy with what I was doing, because he had plenty to control. He had the left hand, he had the whole body, the head, he had the lower lip, the jaw, the lower lip, and then his middle finger controlled the eyebrows. So so I had the eyes, and then between us, Wendy had the ears. So we switched from time to time, depending on the shots. So
here I am thinking they just had a small person doing
it. Well, that's what everyone thought at the time. Yeah.
It's incredible.
That's
very incredible.
That's I kind of have the same thing, I guess, because it all looks so effortless.
Right.
You don't realize how technologically, or I don't know what the word I'm looking for, how precise and how much work it goes into one of these creations. I remember looking at some kind of drawing that somebody did of the inside of Jabba the Hutt, and just seeing like these probably like three men laying on top of each other, one controlling one arm and one controlling the other arm. It just seems incredibly difficult. What was the most difficult or challenging aspect of puppeteering you've ever come across? I'm curious to see. I feel like we're already at a 10, but was there any point in your career where something went up to an 11?
Yeah, initially Jabba was quite, because he was the biggest animatronic I think that had ever been built at that point. And and yeah, so technically he was very advanced and heavy, and also initially we had no air coming in, so it got incredibly hot. And then after that, we got air conditioning, so we got incredibly cold. So then I found a way of taking the air conditioning nozzle and just repositioning it. So we just had a little small drift of air coming in. So then we were fine from that point onwards. And a lot of it is muscle memory. You have to build up the physicality of holding a puppet. So with Jabba, we would get in, we'd climb up underneath, get inside him from underneath the sound stage. About 8:30 in the morning, we'd get out at 1 o'clock for lunch. We'd go back in after lunch at 2, and we'd get back out again at the end of rep. So we'd be in there all day long. And so, but again, with the arm, with his, because I was Jabba's right arm, I could actually rest that onto the self-supporting puppet. So I wouldn't need to take my arm out. I could rest between takes. And then my left hand controlled his jaw and his mouth. So I could make him lip sync. I could make him talk while I spoke the lines, because I spoke the lines for Jabba in English. So everyone knew what he was saying. Like, oh, you know. And no. I don't know if they'd even finished the language at that point.
Wow. So I just remember watching whenever that movie was coming out, there was a television special, and I always thought it was strange that they actually had Jabba speaking English. So are you telling me that was you?
That was my voice, yes.
Oh,
yeah. So you can hear me. Yeah. So yeah, and so I had a little microphone inside Jabba, and we had earpieces. We couldn't see out or hear anything when we were inside. So we had little earpieces so we could hear what the actors were saying. And sometimes that broke up, we couldn't see. We had monitors on our chest, little CRT monitors, terrible images that we couldn't really see that much. So and so we were kind of we couldn't see out, we couldn't really feel that much because we had big extensions, mechanical extensions on our fingers for the Jabba's 3-fingered hand. And so it was quite a challenge to sort of bring him to life. But after a little while, it became muscle memory. Working with my good friend Toby Philpott as the other hand. So I'm doing the right hand, he's doing the left hand. I'm doing the jaw, he's doing the head. And between us, we're making the body move. So yeah, it was definitely a group. And then we had Mike Edmonds sometimes doing the mechanical tail. And as you say, we got people doing radio control for the eyes and the expressions. We got someone controlling the bladders in the stomach, so he was breathing. And sneers and all sort of things. So yeah, I think it took about 7 puppeteers to bring Jabba to life in the big shots, but always Toby and I, John Coppinger and Bob Keane to do even the close-ups. So there's a minimum of 4 people to bring Jabba to life. So
well, certainly not trying to say anything negative about all of the other interpretations of Jabba that we've seen since 1983, but in my opinion, your version looked the best, and it still holds up today. So thank you for that. I'm just realizing I'm talking to somebody who's behind so many incredible memories I had growing up. So dang, I'm just like tearing up a little bit listening to your stories right now. I'm sorry, I'm usually not this emotional.
Well,
I can tell you, I'm usually kind of a prick.
Well, I'm glad that the work that we did all those years ago is still holding up, because I think Yoda still holds up, and that was
incredibly so.
It was the very first time anyone had built an animatronic puppet like that was expected to deliver a performance of that level.
Mm-hmm.
There were sort of jokey things, and of course Jim had created the amazing Muppets, but no one had ever done anything quite like Yoda before. And that was the sort of thing that I was really personally interested in, doing something like that. And so the fact that I got to work on the first day, the first rung of the ladder of animatronics with Yoda was for me just I look back on it and think of how incredibly lucky I was. But yeah, again, with Jabba, it was all about trying to get his persona across, as much as, because again we knew he was going to speak in a foreign language, so effectively the dialogue wasn't going to help the performance. So again, we had to try and give the essential emotional performance through the physicality, and so that's what we again really try to work hard on. and that's the sort of thing that I love. So
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of emotions that go into puppeteering because you have to convey not only the character, but a little bit of yourself in that. And in saying such, in order to convey that deep emotion, what do you do to ensure that that emotion gets translated to screen, and so that your characters resonate with the audiences on an emotional level?
I don't know. I mean, it's I think all good puppeteers do. It's kind of like trying to take the energy inside you and will it out through your hands. But of course, you've got to have the physical, technical skills. You have to be. It's a bit like playing a musical instrument. If you can't play the piano properly, then you're not going to be able to make great music. I mean, so it's a similar sort of thing as trying to communicate emotion through music. It's the same sort of thing. So you need to have a good instrument to be able to get that across. And every single one of these animatronic puppets is a one-off prototype that's never been made before. So you're playing a whole new instrument that no one's ever played before. And so you're trying to find what it does well and what it does poorly, and try and not do the poorly things and focus on what it does well. So yeah, if the harmonics, let's say, are bad this area, don't go there. And so find the things that it does well and really focus on that. And hopefully, if the character has been built with its intent in mind, so the emotional intent, then you should have the amount of technique and technical mechanisms to allow you to bring that to life. Certainly when it's animatronics that we've built from that point onwards, that was one of the key parts of like, well, what expressions is this character going to need, that we are going to need for the performance, and can we design the mechanisms to achieve that, those expressions. And so but back in the day, it was like everyone did the best that they could. I do remember actually though, on Dark Crystal, early version of Orgra, which was sculpted and supervised by Lyle Conway, so she was coming on really nicely. I was part of the puppet build crew and fitting out the stuff, and it was Lyle and Graham Galvin, the three of us basically building Orgra. And so Frank and Jim did a film test on it, and it was interesting. Frank was really focused in trying to find the real specifics of the character. Jim, on the other hand, was seeing where it broke, where it didn't work.
Yeah.
So he would try it and go, no, it doesn't work, that doesn't work. And I'm thinking, well, why? But he was finding the parameters, because you've got to find where the puppets don't work, so you're not going to accidentally go there. And so seeing the two of them, which were, again, they were a brilliant double act, and they worked very well together, but they had a different approach initially in testing stage. Frank really was looking for the specifics that are going to bring Orgra to life, where Jim was looking for the whole range of what this puppet character could achieve. So that was fascinating to see that, and that would have been about 1981, so quite early on in my career.
Yeah. Oh man. Jason?
I've lost track of whose turn it is. I'm sorry. I'm so we mentioned Yoda and Jabba started their fictional lives as practical puppets. Eventually, they both evolved into CGI, and one of them went back to being a puppet in his, as far as I know, last appearance in Star Wars in The Last Jedi. Yes. My question to you is, where do you see puppetry evolving with the integration of technology and CGI, and how do you feel about these changes?
Well, I think there's been some phenomenal animation, computer animation. I mean, I love all the Pixar stuff, of course. It's within its own world and everything. And there have been fantastic work created, integrating realistic looking characters into movies. I think always the challenge is the thing that we try to do as puppeteers is get that personality, emotion, and connection. And so you get a really good animator, and that works. But of course, on a big film, you've probably got a dozen animators. So will it work for every shot? If you've got a puppeteer on set, it's going to happen every time if that's a good puppeteer. So I think the challenge is, and it's getting better and better all the time. I've got some very, very some of the best animation directors in the world's a friend of mine, and they do amazing work, and it's getting so good now. So I think the technique of doing that is brilliant. As far as where it could possibly go, the last movie I did, which no one's seen yet, I'm afraid, is Coyote versus Acme. And this is Wile E. Coyote taking on the Acme Corporation, suing them for all the failed products he's bought over the years.
That's brilliant.
It's a brilliant setup. It's based on a book. The script is fantastic. The actors are great. And the movie's brilliant. But for some reason, Warner's have decided, for the time being at least, I think, to shelve it for tax purposes, because that's the world we live in nowadays.
Angry. Oh,
yeah,
I've been following that so closely, and I'm so angry. Dave, I'm no, I don't need to say anything. Sorry.
Yeah, so you probably didn't know, but then I was Wile E. Coyote every day on set. I built a actual size Wile E. Coyote foam reference puppet, and I designed him so he could act. So again, because he doesn't speak either, so he's another perfect thing for me. I designed him so his cheeks would smile and frown, and that his eyebrows would frown and go sad. So, and that was all controlled with the rest of the puppet with my right hand, because it was just me on set, and then my left hand was Coyote's left hand. And so I did every single day on set, worked with all the actors. And the difference these days is that I can be there with the puppet for every shot, so they've got something to act with. So when Coyote's frowning and his cheeks are down, and then he looks up, there's all the reactions for the actors to work with. Nowadays, they can completely digitally remove me and the puppet, because obviously it needs to be Warner Brothers style animation in the final film. Right. But it means that integration can be perfect. And so the visual effects supervisor, George, was very happy for me to be in shot. No, I said, oh no, there's all these people behind me. You'll never paint those out. He said, don't worry, that's my problem. The performance with the actors and you is much better when you're in shot. So we want you in shot. So that's changed. Back in the day, they couldn't afford to have me and the puppet in shot to remove me. So I would do like I did on Roger Rabbit and Looney Tunes Back in Action. I would be there with the reference puppets, but then when they actually filmed it, they had to go away. And so the actors would be working with the memory of what was there rather than the actual puppet. So with the new technology, that interaction can be better than ever before. And maybe one day they'll choose to have an actual animatronic as well in the shot too, which would be lovely.
That would be cool.
Well, I've got my fingers crossed that movie will be released, because everyone who I have seen interviewed about it talk about how fantastic it is. And Warner Brothers, do the right thing. Do the right thing. Let this movie see the light of day. We want to see it. We will pay to see this movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe they'll let it out on stream. That'll be good. That'll be a great.
I don't know. I mean, it did high 90s on all its previews. Everyone loves it. I mean, and deals were set up for theatrical distribution and everything. It's just that whoever was in charge of Warner Brothers decided that they were going to shelve it for tax purposes. So purely the new way of running business, which to be honest, if it was like that when I started, I probably would have got very disillusioned pretty quickly. So I'm glad it's happening at the end of my career rather than the beginning.
I hear you. What advice would you give somebody that wants to pursue a career in puppeteering?
Interesting. I think nearly everybody that I know that has, including my parents, who have followed the puppet path, is because once they've got involved with it, they love it, and it's something that they really have to do. There have been some puppeteers who were actors and did it for the convenience and for a paycheck, and some of them have done very well with that. But I think generally you're not going to become wealthy becoming a puppeteer. I mean, yeah, I think there was, I mean, Jim Henson and Frank Oz, but then that was not because of being a puppeteer. Frank, I think, because he's a director, and Jim Henson because he had the Muppets, he had the intellectual property rights of that particular thing. But so I think most puppeteers, a lot of my puppeteers, yeah, haven't made much money at all over the years. I've done okay. Done okay, but certainly not made a lot of money. And so it's something that you do because you love it. You love it, and I do. I mean, I absolutely love it, and I continue to love it to this day. And it gives me great joy being involved in all the projects that I've been involved. So yeah, so I think it's something that you have to be passionate about, and there are still opportunities for puppeteers. I think I was really lucky in the late 70s and the 80s when it was a huge demand for animatronics and puppetry, and I happened to be lucky to get involved with like the key producers and like Jim and Frank and all of that stuff. So so yeah, I was very lucky. But the Hensons are still doing things. They're remaking Fraggle Rock, which I'm delighted about.
That's
with
nice.
Apple TV. My good friend Karen Prell returns as Red Fraggle.
Oh, nice.
So, and she's doing a phenomenal job there. She's up for an Emmy this year, so I really hope she wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think most of the puppeteers I know had to train themselves because there wasn't any academic way of doing it. But now there's, I think, the Atlanta University and Puppet Center. There's lots of different ways of being able to learn puppetry and puppet building skills, and even some of the special effects companies will do special online courses on how to build animatronics. So I think the opportunities for youngsters these days are there, but I think there are less jobs to go around. So I guess you really have to desperately want to do it and enjoy it. So, but everybody that I know, that's the category they fit into.
It's a catch-22.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the opportunity to serve as a mentor to somebody?
Yes. Yeah, a few people over the years, and sort of trying to bring them under the belt. So really just combination of some puppet makers, some puppeteers, and puppeteers who are just like friends that I've tried to mentor. I mean, one of my good friends, he's a brilliant puppeteer, a great writer as well, and an actor, a guy called Dave Chapman, and he ended up being puppeteer for BB-8. So on Star Wars.
Wow, the legacy continues.
Yeah, so it's like and there was a particular technical situation he told me about when they were filming Force Awakens, and he was he was thinking about it, and he thought, well, what would Dave Barclay do? And when he told me that, I thought, oh, thank you for saying that, And so he then followed along. No, that's what I'll do too. So that's what he followed along, and it all worked out great. But yeah, it was really nice of him to actually bring that up to me. So that was lovely.
Oh, that's incredible. Is there much room for improv as a puppeteer? Like to go off script and just do something a little quirky and fun?
They can be. I mean, we just wrapped Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was very scripted generally. Although a lot of Bob Zemeckis would come in and go, I've got a little puppet show for you guys today, meaning that we're going to do all these effects that wasn't in the script, and he just worked it out overnight, and he would tell us what he wanted, and we had half an hour to rig all the props and do it. So yeah, there was even in something like Roger Rabbit that looks like it's very, very, very focused. A lot of it was improvised because they were making it up as they went along, and I was able to design and build the rigs to move the props quickly and efficiently. So that was a real joy. But the initial job that came in after that was I was doing a single character monologue to camera that was 50% scripted and 50% ad-libbed. So yeah, we came up with who the character would be, and the script would have initially set up that character, but then so half of the day I was ad-libbing the rest of the material. So yeah, so there can be situations where you can ad lib, and for me again, someone says come in and do some straightforward ad libbing. It's initially in my career it was really tough. I hadn't really learnt the techniques, because you can learn techniques to get around that, but it's like as soon as I knew the character, then the character would speak for the character, which was really interesting. I didn't have to think about what the character was going to say, because the character would say it on the character's behalf. That part of my brain would just let it go, and it would be within character always. So I love that. I love that, the fact that your brain can do that.
Yeah. We got a lot of surprises up here in the brain sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Yeah.
Pure puppetry. I mean, I was doing Sprocket, and I've been doing Sprocket for a few years, and typically I would hold him above my head as often for as long as I could, and often he would be in front of a desk, and I'd gently lay him on the desk or lean my arm against the desk, because he had his moustache and he had his eyebrows, and they would get all out of whack if you dropped them down. They'd all have to be smoothed between every take. So I'd got used to basically holding him up in the air all day long. I remember the process of filming or recording Fraggle Rock when we were doing it. I'm looking down at the black and white monitor, which is our reference for filming, and you go through the take, and the take stops, and you go, right, well, let's look it back, see if there's any puppeteers' heads in, or the arms in, or the cameras are not looking in the right place. So you spend the time doing all the takes and then watching the takes back. This was something that was really important to Jim, to make sure that every performance was good. So we'd watch back every performance and we'd look at it, and they would ask the puppeteers, was that a good take? Was that okay for you? Did you see any puppeteer heads or any technical problems? And we'd normally say no. So I remember I've got Sprocket. I'm looking at this black and white monitor, and I'm looking at the playback, and I'm watching Sprocket, and Sprocket's doing these various different eye lines. So I'm thinking, oh yeah, well the eye lines are looking good, and yeah, okay, it's a simple take. That's good. I'm very happy with that. And then the director says cut, and suddenly it's one of those strange camera movements when everything changes perspective. I thought I was watching a playback, but I was actually puppeteering Sprocket live.
Oh.
And my brain had got so used to doing it and multitasking that I was not consciously aware of puppeteering the puppet. And it's like, wow. And it's like, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get it automatic so that the characters performing themselves to a degree. And it's happened little bits here and there throughout my career, but never a whole take. When I was watching back this take, convinced I was watching a playback. And because actually Sprocket was silent at this time. If I'd barked, I probably would have taken myself out of that moment. But because Sprocket wasn't making it, had to be quiet in this take. It was like, wow. So it's like, yeah, the brain can do some pretty crazy things. And because, I mean, the idea is you've got all this technical stuff. You've got to make sure that the puppet looks right on camera, because there's a couple of angles of Sprocket that look terrible on camera. So I always had to make sure that I moved the head in a certain way so he would look always alive. And then you've got to remember all the script. Certainly with dialogue, you've got to remember the dialogue, and then you've got to act on top of that, and you've got to interact with the humans. So there's a lot to be sort of multitasking with, and yes. So this one time I thought, well, yeah, no, I know I'm a bit crazy, but that's going a bit far, you know.
That's awesome. Oh my God, that's so cool.
So, what do you want your legacy to be? What would you like to most be remembered for?
Well, my legacy is just that people have enjoyed the characters that I've performed, and that they've somehow connected with the puppet characters, because it's not like an actor. This is an inanimate object that you're trying to bring to life, and if I've done that, then I'm very happy that the audiences have enjoyed it. So and so that's the thing for me. Just if I've entertained people and they've enjoyed my characters, then that's as good as it gets for a puppeteer, I think. So.
Well, congratulations, you've done it. You got 2 evidences right here. What would you say is your dream project? We talked a little bit before we started recording about something that you missed, but was there ever anything that you were like, I really want to do this?
Well, there was yes, there. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a director and a filmmaker. And then, of course, I got to work on Empire, and I became someone who was providing film services for many years. So I wanted to do my own film, but I thought, well, I haven't spent the time learning to be a great filmmaker, but I'd like to do it anyway. So in 2010, I decided I was going to make a movie about based on one of my parents' puppet plays. It was called The Ice King. And I decided, yeah, no, I'm going to do this myself. And a couple of friends said, oh, yeah, we'll raise some money for you. But of course, it was just after the 2008 crash.
Oh.
And all the independent film funds were like, no one was getting anything anywhere. And everything was changing with the streaming. So I think I chose exactly the wrong time to try and do it. And I was going to do it with animatronics, but I think it was like over 200,000 just for buying some motors. And for the animatronic faces, and it's like, well, that's all right if it's on a movie budget, but it's out of my pocket. I can't afford that. So I decided to go for the cheapest possible motion capture system, which actually worked very well, and make my own version of my parents' puppet play, with the hope that I would get the funding to finish it properly. But sadly, that the funding never came, so I finished it as good as I could. But it's and I'm glad I got it as close to finish as I can. But I don't think it's gonna end up getting distributed or anything like that. So, but maybe one day I'll just stream it online somewhere, So
yeah, you should. So who knows?
It.
Yeah, we'll be the first ones on.
Of course, try to get that money first, though. Try to get that money.
Yeah,
it would be nice. Yeah, I mean, you never know. It's possible. I mean, friends keep saying, "Oh yeah, we're close," but they said that 15 years ago. So it's tough. I mean, even for the big Hollywood producers who get massive stars to sign in on things. I mean, it's hard to get films made. So
yeah. But
even more so now with the streaming issues. So
yeah, there's so much limitation. It's quite sad. Yeah. But on the flip side of things, we have some quite good news, and that's you have a book coming out.
Yes.
It's My Life with Animatronics, Movies, Puppets, and Beyond. We'd like to give you the full floor to talk about your book and everything that you can, and share with us that you will.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah. So about 20 years ago, a good friend of mine, a great writer and designer, Murty Schofield, said, Dave, you've got to write your autobiography. And no. He said, no, you've got so many stories and you're the only one who can tell them, So I say, yeah, it's true. And he said, if only for your granddaughters. Okay, so he's trying to persuade me to do it. And I said, yeah, well, I'm too busy and I'll need a window where I can concentrate on it. And so, of course, we got COVID come along. But no, I didn't do it then. I wasn't sensible or anything like that and did it during COVID. Because everybody else did, I think. Everybody else sat down and wrote their autobiographies. But then a couple of years later, I did. I had a moment of time that seemed right. But I'd been thinking, like, how am I going to write this? There's so many stories on every single project that I've worked on, and which ones are entertaining, or it's like, I don't know. So, but then I came up with an idea that I have so many photographs, and I thought, well, it would be great to tell a story around a photograph. So that the photograph really you can visualize the story through the photograph. And I thought, well, if I use that as the approach to it, and embed all those photographs into the book, because most of these books, it's all text with a few pages in the middle with photographs. And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. So I have basically set the book up with
Oh, amazing.
like just hundreds of photographs of all the different sections, all the different stages of my career, and each one relates to the stories of my career. So
Very
yeah,
genius.
so I thought by using photographs, a visual medium, can help explain the stories and put everything into context. So once I came up with that, it's like, right, okay, now I've got to get approval from all the different people that I'd like to use. But again, people like Frank Oz and Mark Hamill, Brendan Fraser were just amazing in immediately replying, saying, of course you can use the photographs in the book. And then I got Lucasfilm, Disney, and Henson's also to approve. So that was just wonderful. So I'm able to put a whole load of photographs that nobody's ever seen before, behind the scenes photographs from the various different projects. And so I'm very happy that I can include those, and I've been allowed the approval process through those companies and those people. So that's really good. So that took a little while to get all that in place, but now it's ready to get out, and it's my journey from being a 4-year-old child puppeteering my little string puppets to having the amazing opportunities and luck that I've had in my career. And it's all just based on my passion for puppetry, which is still as strong today as it ever has been. So,
oh, that's fantastic. David, thank you so much for joining us in the Captain's Quadrant. Thanks for showing just a little piece of your illustrious career. And thanks for taking us on the journey from our childhood to now into so many wonderful projects that we've loved since the 1980s up until recently. So
yeah.
Your legacy is a moment filled, and you have so many people that stir in echoes, just giving you kudos. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course. That's going to wrap it up for this particular episode of the Captain's Quadrant Section 31. David, again, we can't thank you enough for joining us here. And of course, we have to have a special thanks to our friends at Cool Water Productions that helped make this wonderful interview possible. They represent some of the most amazing talent in the industry. Cool Water Productions, we are grateful for you. And if you want to grab a copy of David's book, coolwatersprods.com. And right now, Captain Quadrant fans can get a pre-order exclusive Cool Waters Productions LLC. You can get not only this amazing book signed by David Barclay himself, but you can also get one 8x10 poster signed of Maldrix, a movie poster along with this amazing book. You can't go wrong. Be sure to visit and pre-order today. Over there, you can check out a lot of the other things that they have to offer at Cool Water Productions. Great folks there. We really appreciate you, and we will see you next time, everybody.
Cheers.